Hi, this is AJ Hogue. Welcome to the Effortless English Show, the show that teaches you to speak English powerfully. Go to effortlessenglishclub.com to try my VIP membership for just $1. We have an interesting show today, an interesting topic, dating and language learning. Or we could call it multilingual dating, dating someone who speaks a different language than you. My guests today are Gabby and Lindsay from All Ears English podcast. We're going to jump right into talking to them, and then I'll give you my sad little dating stories later. Okay, here we go. Hello, guys. Hi.
AJ. Hi, guys. Hi, AJ.
I'm Gabby. This is Lindsay. We're from allearsenglish.com, and you can find a special ebook at allearsenglish.com/AJ. For how to make friends in American culture.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us on today, AJ.
Sure. Now, each of you has experience living in another country and dating people who speak other languages. So let's just start with Lindsay. When did you first go abroad? And
yeah, absolutely. So I ended up dating a Spanish speaker, and we decided to travel together to Latin America. So one of my goals was really becoming fluent in Spanish. And it ended up being a big frustration traveling with this person because I lost my sense of self. I wasn't, the person I was traveling with, the person I was dating, asked me to actually speak a little bit less so we wouldn't get scammed by taxi drivers.
Right, so they wouldn't hear your accent.
Because I was a total beginner. And so this is something that our listeners or your audience might want to, I don't know, just be aware of. This could happen, right? So it's the sense of starting to doubt yourself when your partner asks you to not speak the target language, to just zip it.
Or maybe depending on the person you're dating to speak or to be your translator, then you're not going to learn if you don't try it yourself.
Exactly. So I became really dependent on this person, and I started to lose my confidence. It was terrible. But in the end, we ended up breaking up, and then I was able to travel by myself and become fluent in Spanish. So there's a happy ending.
Yeah.
But that's an example of a frustration that I had with language learning. And
yeah. Gabby, how about you? When did you first start, dating someone who spoke a different language, a language you wanted to learn?
Yeah, sure. Well, I lived in Japan, and I really wanted to learn Japanese, but my Japanese is kind of, so-so, very beginner. But I had the opportunity to meet up with a guy who spoke only Japanese and no English. And so this was a great opportunity. It gave me intrinsic motivation, that motivation from inside that, you want to have someone like you. You want to connect with that person. And so I made the date. I think it was maybe like a few days in advance, and then I crammed in Japanese. I just crammed vocabulary. I thought, okay, how many sentences can I make that ask, do you like? Because I knew very basic phrases. So I went through, I think the date was probably an hour or maybe 2 hours, but I went through every single possibility. Do you like ice cream? Do you like movies? Do you like pets? Every single possibility with the grammar that I already knew. Just really simple phrases got me a long way, and also, that meeting that person gave me that motivation, and I was really focused on learning because I had a deadline. I knew, I didn't want to look silly or not be able to talk. So, that was a success because in that one meeting, I was able to carry a conversation in Japanese for like 2 hours. So that was a huge win. The relationship didn't, it didn't work out, not that it didn't work out, but that was the one opportunity I had. I don't think I had enough Japanese for a second date, but for that one date, it was awesome.
And AJ, one of the things that you were talking about when you were on our show was learning in a heightened state of emotional kind of awareness, or being really fired up to learn. It sounds like that's what happened with Gabby. She knew her date was coming, and she was really fired up to learn. So it's like the emotions were really on high up here.
Yeah, because it's more than just something like, preparing for a test, which is important and it motivates you. But, when you're connecting with a person, someone who you like, someone you might want to date or build a relationship with. That's like a lot of motivation that you get from inside. And it makes you really want to learn. You have a deadline. And so you're thinking about all the possibilities of that situation. What kind of questions would I want to ask? Things like, tell me about your family. How many sisters and brothers do you have?
Yeah, you'll never forget those phrases, right?
Well, it's been a while. I think I can remember some of them, but it definitely gave me that motivation because I wanted to connect with that person, And we're talking about dating, which is a very motivating topic, but this goes for making friends, I think connecting with people in general, And I know some people don't like to talk about dating depending on the culture, but that's why I say it, it's not just about dating, it's about connecting with people.
About connecting, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because each of you you kind of showed the maybe the frustrating side or the good side. So, do you think it depends on, or do you think it's the success of this or the positive outcome of dating someone or having a good friendship with someone who speaks another language that you want to learn? Does it matter, their level of English, or does it matter what your level is in their language? Does that affect how it comes out in the end?
I think it could. I mean, if your level is so basic. I mean, well, I guess in both of our cases, our levels were both very, very basic.
Right.
But if you have a certain level, like maybe a upper beginner or lower intermediate, at least you'd be able to have a little bit more of a sense of like a presence in the relationship.
Yeah.
You're there. At least you know something. Whereas if you don't know anything, you're kind of getting washed over, and you're kind of, I don't know. That was my experience.
Yeah, I think let's say the person learning, so let's say they're learning English, right? As long as you can be creative with the vocabulary and maybe your grammar's not perfect, that's okay. You can make a lot of questions and have quite a bit of conversation even at a beginner's level, as long as you have some vocabulary. Be creative and think outside the box, different ways to ask questions and maybe clarify if the other person doesn't understand. Like you could give an example, like, oh, how many brothers do you have? Maybe he doesn't understand, but you could say, oh, I'm an only child, or, how about you? Just be creative. Don't get too nervous if the other person doesn't understand at first, because you have to work that out.
A sense of humor is important,
Oh,
right?
man, yeah.
And I think culture also plays into this, right? So I looked up a little bit of research. There was a research in the Canadian Journal of Behavioral Sciences, which talked about the extent to which someone is interested or engaged with the new culture. For example, if you marry someone from a new culture, you move abroad with them, the extent to which you're interested in that culture, engaged in that culture, and also the extent to which you're not afraid of losing your own cultural identity will actually determine how well you learn that language. So if you're afraid of losing your original culture, you might be less likely to go in and learn that new language. Right. But if you're not, if you're secure in your own cultural identity, you can go in there and say, hey, I'm okay picking up my partner's language.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And so, like, even if you don't have a partner or a date in English or the language you want to learn, I have some kind of unorthodox ways that you could use dating as the concepts to practice language. I was just reading the Fluent in 3 Months blog, and there was a suggestion that you could go to a speed dating event.
That's a good idea.
In the language you want to learn.
As a way to learn.
Right? Maybe
Oh my God, talk about stress.
You have 3 minutes to impress.
Well, it's like, wait, you have to repeat a self-introduction. You have to repeat a self-introduction like 20 times. And it's a great way to practice. As long as you don't really care, I mean, just go and try it out.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, there's a lot of websites that are for dating, and you can, read people's profiles and see how they describe themselves in the language. You could, be careful, but you could create your own profile. You could interact with people. And I'm just saying, be careful, because of course there's, issues with meeting people online, but it's a way to interact in English.
Right. And bridging that, like building that relationship is showing a gesture towards your partner, right? So we were talking about like what love actually is, you know, like what is love? So let's get a little bit deep here, right? It's like it's attention and intention. So when you put your attention towards building a language skill to be with your partner, that's actually a huge gesture of love.
Wow.
Whereas if you're just saying, oh yeah, we'll just, you know, speak my native language, not as much, right? But it's a gesture. And you're moving yourself towards that person.
Right.
So.
I have a couple friends. One who's an American woman who's learning Portuguese because she married a Brazilian man. So every week she goes to Portuguese classes because she wants to connect with his family and the in-laws. Huge. And another friend who's learning Korean because her boyfriend is from Korea, and she wants to be able to talk with his mother. It's so sweet. It's really nice.
Cute.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. And you know, you're both you're mentioning that the emotion. I mean, what I'm hearing is that it's that emotional connection to obviously to the person, but then that then connects you to the whole culture and the language at a deeper, more emotional level than say, oh, I got to pass a test.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of research about the types of motivation that will encourage you to learn a language. And intrinsic motivation is, you know, what comes from inside. And if love motivates you, which it does for most people, that's going to be a huge motivating force for you to learn a language. Whether you're in love with the culture or you're in love with a person or you have a very good friend, I think those are all very strong emotional motivators.
Absolutely.
Right. And you know, you mentioned also that so you know, we're talking about love and dating. However, there might be people out there who already, you know, they're already married, they already have a girlfriend, a boyfriend. So you mentioned friendship as well. Can you talk more about people are intimidated, I think. I know I get tweets that, you know, like we got one here. There's a question from Mirkamil on Twitter. And he's saying, I'm not native. Do English girls mind if someone's not a native speaker? People worry about this when making friends. Oh, will they like me because I can't speak English well enough? What do you say to that?
I think it's endearing to watch someone put themselves out there and they're trying. You know that they're trying, and you know I think students don't realize this, but we always we figure out what you're saying if you're making a mistake.
Well, and just be really open and honest about who you are. And you mentioned two things kind of at the same time. Let's say, you know, with the person who tweeted there, he's feeling a little doubt about his ability. Just be open and honest. You can say, I'm learning English, you know, please be patient with me. And that's very endearing.
You can own it. You can own where you are, you know, and that is endearing because that's showing authenticity. It's showing the real you instead of trying to be something that you're not.
The other thing you mentioned, AJ, about, well, what if you're married? What if you're already in a relationship and you want to look for friends? Just be completely open and honest. You know, you could say, you know, let's say, for example, if I'm talking, my boyfriend and I don't speak Japanese together, but I'd love to practice with you, my Japanese friend. You know, so be open and honest. Don't try to hide that you're married or have a boyfriend or something. And a lot of people are looking for friends, you know, to explore different cultures or, you know, talk about language with.
Try to be honest, open and honest, because sometimes nuances can be interpreted differently across cultures, right? In certain cultures, there's maybe more touching involved, and it might not mean anything. There might be an assumption that it means something.
Or if you invite someone out to lunch, well, is that as friends, as a date? Just be really open and honest, and you can say, oh, I'd like to go to lunch with you because I want to learn about Brazil. Let's say I'm talking to a Brazilian friend. I want to ask you some questions about Brazil, and it shouldn't be assumed, you know, that you're looking for more. It's totally okay just to be friends.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, what are some tips you can give our audience to connect with? You know, they're obviously English learners, and they want to make friends who speak English. They want to get those real-life connections, whether it's dating or friendship or whatever. What are some tips for people who are, you know, they're living in a place and they don't have English speakers where they live?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always engaged in language exchanges, right? So, I mean, here in Boston, I have a friend who speaks Spanish. He's from Bolivia, but we could have set that up online as well. So just finding someone that speaks the language you're trying to learn, your target language, and making sure that you commit to that session every week. And it can turn into a friendship. It can turn into a more, you know, business-oriented type thing, but it's an exchange.
Right, and if you can't find someone to do like live time Skype or whatever, I learned a lot of Spanish just through instant messaging. And so if you're on social media and you're writing short messages in a chat box or Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, those instant messages can help a lot. And it's interesting because you do have more time to think about what you're going to write. So for someone who's just beginning or intermediate, maybe not advanced yet, it's a really great way to start learning. It's just chatting or leaving comments. We have social media pages. Effortless English and then All Ears English. So practice your English by chatting online.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much. It's been really interesting. I know this is a topic a lot of people are interested in, and you put together a little ebook, right, about making American friends.
Yeah, 5 ways to make American friends. So go to allearsenglish.com/AJ, and you'll get it there.
Okay, great. I'll tweet that out again to everybody. So it's allearsenglish.com/AJ. That's me, and you can get the free ebook. 4 or 5 ways to make American friends?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
Thank you for having us on. That was fun.
Yeah, great. So I'll see you again. We'll have you some other time in the future.
All right.
Sounds good. Bye for now.
Bye for now. All right, so very interesting, this whole idea of dating and friendships, and really we're talking about emotional connections, real-life connections with real people. And what Gabby and Lindsay were both saying is that the research shows that that's the number one, or at least one of the top motivators for learning a language. In other words, people who connect to the language emotionally, to the culture emotionally, end up speaking better. They get better results compared to people who are only focused on the academics. They're only focused on improving their TOEFL score, for example. So when you take 2 people and one's focused on just TOEFL and getting those exams, and the other one is focused on connecting to people who speak English, making American friends, making Canadian friends. If they're single, perhaps dating. But the point is an emotional connection, and not just the friendships, then learning about American culture, Canadian culture, British culture, whatever. That person generally will have much better results in the end with English. And they'll get a better TOEFL score too, in fact. So I'm also familiar, there's a lot of research about this, and it all shows the same thing. Some interesting research also shows that your pronunciation is very much dependent on your emotional connection to people and the culture. In other words, when you want to be part of that culture, you're learning English. So let's say you really want to connect with Americans. You make close, good American friends. You learn about American culture. Not all of it, but just some part of American culture that you love. And the more you connect in that way, at a deep emotional level, at a social level, the better your pronunciation will be. So pronunciation is often a psychological issue, meaning that people don't want to lose their accent, because if they lose their accent, then they feel they're losing their own culture. But of course, you'll never lose your own culture. It's impossible. You have to just be willing to create maybe a second persona. You have a second sort of role, or almost like a character, where, okay, now I'm an American and I'm connecting with Americans and I'm speaking English and I'm part of that culture too. So you can have many different cultures. It's fine. Something else that Gabby and Lindsay were talking about that made me think of my own life experience is that my wife is Japanese, but my Japanese speaking has not improved very much. I know a little bit of Japanese, and the point is, it's no guarantee. When you date someone from another culture, it doesn't mean suddenly, automatically, you will learn to speak very well. In other words, you are still responsible. It's still up to you. You still have to go out and you have to find interesting listening materials. You have to communicate in the language. In the case with my wife, she speaks English at a much, much, much higher level than I speak Japanese. Her English is up here, and my Japanese is very, very low. And I found in my personal relationship, I don't want to be a teacher. So I don't teach her English. She doesn't teach me Japanese. It's weird. We're not teachers and students. We're married. So in our relationship, because her English is so much higher, it's just been easier to speak English because we can communicate better in that language. And I think that often is what happens, that a couple will speak the language that both of them speak best. So if you want to learn English, then maybe find someone who can't speak your language at all, as a friend or for dating. It doesn't have to be dating. It could just be friendships too. And I guess my final point is this, because it's something I've seen a lot traveling around. When you connect with someone, as a friend, dating, whatever, treat them as a friend, just as you would someone who speaks your own language. And what I mean is, when you have a friend, if you do make an American friend online, for example, do not treat them as your teacher. Don't ask them to correct your mistakes. Please don't do this. Because what you do is, when you start treating them like a teacher, you say, oh, correct my mistakes. Did I say that correctly? Can you teach me some idioms? When you do that, it's not a natural friendship, right? The other person will sort of become uncomfortable because you're just treating them like a teacher. I had this happen, for example, in Korea many times. I would just walk around, and it seemed like everyone in Korea wanted to talk to me in English. And at first I thought, oh, this is nice, I'll make friends. But soon I realized they're just using me as a free English teacher. So it became quite annoying to me because I felt they didn't care about me as a person. They were not trying to be my real friend. They just wanted free English lessons. So if you're going to get English lessons, get them from someone, pay them. But when you make friends, just be their friend. Don't worry about your grammar mistakes. As Gabby and Lindsay said, it doesn't matter. Normal people don't care. They just care about who you are. They care about your ideas, your feelings. So just communicate. Be a real friend. Focus more on what you can do for them, on being a good friend, on being helpful, on listening to them. Just be a normal, good friend, and yes, your English will get better, but an even better benefit is that you'll have a friend. So when you make friends, when you make these connections, please don't ask them to teach you. Okay, it's not their role, and it will kind of hurt the friendship if you do that, I think, in most cases. So just be natural. Treat them like a real friend. All right, let's go to Twitter, as usual, our Twitter questions. My Twitter is twitter.com/AJHoge, AJHOGE. I'll answer your questions about making American friends or Canadian friends or dating or anything you like. Okay, so this Lazy Boy Hi Huis on Twitter says, Gabby and Lindsay speak English so well. How long have they learned English at that level? Well, I believe they're native speakers, so all their lives. So that's why they speak so well, because they learn from little babies. So yes, indeed, they do speak well. I agree. All right, so let's go to our next question. This is a good point, actually. Nasdullah on Twitter says, in fact, sometimes a foreign accent can be a turn-on for native speakers. It can be attractive for native speakers. That's true. There is a kind of romantic idea for many people about dating someone who is from another culture, another country, so that someone with another accent can be seen as more as interesting or mysterious or whatever, because they're different. So your accent, if you're want to date an American, or just be friends with an American, for example, or a Canadian or British, whatever, and if you have a Spanish accent or a Mexican accent or a Japanese accent, whatever, that can be appealing to some people. So it can be attractive. It can actually make people more interested in you. So you don't think of it as something bad. It can actually be positive. Good point. I agree. Even within native English speakers, there's this idea. So Americans, for example, a lot of Americans like the British accent, and like, ooh, that's, you know, it's attractive. Or an Australian accent. I like the Australian accent. Something about it. It's so don't worry about your accent. Don't worry about it too much, because a lot of people do like it. Okay, this is great. So Il Maestro said I had a chance to have a conversation with the guy who was from Chile, and it was amazing. I never asked him to correct my mistakes. That's great. When you have a chance to have a conversation with someone, just enjoy it like you would any normal person. Treat them like a human being. Do not treat them like a language teacher. If you're learning Spanish and you have a chance to talk to someone from Spain or Chile, just enjoy the conversation. You know, I talk to my friend Oscar in Spain, usually once a week, and I just enjoy talking to him. He does teach me some phrases because I'm paying him, but honestly, I mostly just enjoy chatting with him. We chat about what he's doing in life. We chat about what I'm doing. It's fun. I just enjoy the interaction, and I don't worry too much about learning Spanish while I'm talking to him. And that's what I recommend to you too. Just make real connections, make real friends. The English will come. The English will improve automatically just because you're listening and communicating with someone who speaks that language. You know, if you're talking to native speakers, if you have friendships, don't worry about your English. It will improve automatically. Just focus on being a good friend and enjoying that friendship. Okay, so another Nas Abdullah, our last question here says, my nephew is a Canadian citizen. Will it help me to copy his accent if I speak to him over Skype? I'll give you two answers to that. While you are actually speaking to him, while you're actually having your conversation, don't think about copying his accent, because it could probably be quite annoying to him and it will distract you. Because instead of just talking to him like a regular human being, you'll be thinking about accent, and that's not good. If, however, it could be helpful to copy his accent, so I recommend what you do is record your nephew speaking. You could record your conversation with him. Then later, by yourself, alone, listen to the recording, listen to your nephew speaking, for example, and pause, and then copy his accent. Then play another sentence, copy his accent again. So that is useful. If you don't have a Canadian nephew, you can do this with any actor, any movie. Just get a movie. If you want a British accent, get a British movie. If you want an Australian accent, get an Australian movie, American, etc. And just you copy your favorite actors speaking. Copy their accent. But do this when you're alone, not in the middle of a conversation. In the middle of a conversation, that's not the time to be studying or learning or practicing something. When you're having a real conversation, just communicate as best you can. That's all. It's not practicing time. You'll make better friendships when you do this, and this will, in the end, actually help your English more. All right, so let's end with our code and mission, as always. I enjoyed talking to you today. This is an interesting topic. We could go on and on, but I need to get going, so let's stop it here, and we'll continue next week with another topic. Our code at Effortless English. First of all, we have a code, and our code is just how we treat each other. It's what makes our community special. So number 1, we do the best we can. Number 2, we do the right thing. And number 3, we show each other we care. Focus especially on number 3, show each other we care. On Twitter, on our websites, when you're face-to-face with people, show them you care. Very simple. Our deeper mission for Effortless English, to explore new opportunities for growth, to bring vitality and confidence to people all over the world, to boldly go where we have never gone before. Meaning we continue to learn and explore during our whole lives, and we contribute to other people. All right, that's our show for today. As always, go to effortlessenglishclub.com and try my VIP program for just $1. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.